Hello and welcome to On Point. I'm Andrea Tanchez. If you thought your days of following a dress code were over, you thought wrong. The Student Recreation Center at Cal State Northridge is implementing its dress code more strictly than in past semesters. New signs have been placed in the facility showing gym-goers what they can and can't wear. The specific don'ts include displaying a visible midsection or lower back. People are not allowed to wear clothing that shows excessive sides or clothes with zippers or buttons. Many students say they have been stopped by employees and asked to change or leave the gym. If they don't have the appropriate shirt to change into, they're given the option to buy one.
So I walked in there, they told me, oh, you can't come in here, and I was like, oh, okay. And then they offered, like, oh, you could just buy a shirt. So maybe it's a scheme to get some more money, I don't know.
SRC representatives say the dress code is primarily for sanitary reasons, comfort, and to protect equipment. Many students say they're not even aware of the dress code.
Do you know what the dress code is at the SRC?
Not exactly.
No, I don't.
I have no clue at all.
I'm not sure what the SRC policy is.
I don't know the policy actually.
I've seen like a poster with like the dress code policy on it, but yeah, that's it.
Do you know what it is?
I was never aware of it.
Another concern is that the dress code at the Recreation Center targets a specific gender.
I think it certainly does target women more than men.
Why is that?
If anything, because men, like, you see guys working out shirtless in the gym and they don't get kicked out. But if a woman was to show like a little bit of side, then they get kicked out like, hey, you're distracting or something like that. They're going to be like, it's too risque.
Of course, I think it targets women, for sure.
I definitely think the dress code would target one gender over another because mostly those are all things that girls would wear. Like, guys don't show their midriffs. Guys don't really have like low, like you do on occasion, but honestly, if I were to go to the SRC in a muscle tee, I don't think anybody would say anything to me. But if a girl would, they would definitely get.
Honestly, I think it is a bit more towards girls. I mean, guys is only like one type of shirt that like they're really affected by now.
And that's not all they're questioning.
People can wear whatever they want to wear on campus, but when you go to the gym, you can't wear whatever you want to wear. It's a little weird.
I don't know, people should just come work out. There's people working here ready to keep everything sanitized and clean. So I don't know how my sweat, I'm going to sweat regardless, so I would like to sweat in peace and freedom. It's the gym. I want to work out, get my mind going, and essentially just, kick ass in the gym so I can kick ass in school.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense if you're going to work out and you're going to be hot anyway and you're going to be all sweaty. Like, I don't understand why you would need to enforce rules even more to where the point where you have to be even more strict about what you dress. And we're all adults at the end of the day. We're not children. We're not in high school.
It just makes no sense. Like if they were to have an explanation with it, then it would make more sense.
I don't think any gym that I go to has a dress code really, so I don't see why the SRC should have a dress code just because it's on campus.
The problem isn't with what they claim that it is. I think it's not about making others feel uncomfortable or with sanitation or things like that. I think that it is just further a further relay of problem with sexualizing girls.
On Point's Brandon Benitez has more on the story.
Thank you, Andrea. Today I'm joined by Jimmy Francis, the Associate Director of the USU, and also Jennifer Berry, a Gender Women's Studies professor. I wanted to thank you guys both for coming up and spend some time today to talk.
Thank you.
Jimmy, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell me a bit about your SRC's dress code?
Sure, yeah, there's a number of guidelines in place at the rec center. So one of the things that we have in place is a guideline for clothing. So for both genders, we have certain, guidelines we put in place for a variety of different reasons. And kind of boiling it down to the gist of it, it talks about covering both kind of the midsection, upper. There's some guidelines about things below the waist and above the waist to kind of restrict the amount of skin that's shown for a variety of different reasons for all genders.
Great. And who came up with this dress code?
Yeah, so the rec center, gosh, I think, maybe 7 or 8 years now in January. So when before we opened the building, we had an advisory committee of students. So those students came up with all of the guidelines for the space. So we looked at about 17 different schools. And so among those 17 different schools, we came up with a number of different guidelines that govern the rec center. So with students, in fact, the clothing guideline has not changed since we opened the building many years ago when we first started. So it's kind of they were come up with. And again, these guidelines are something that really evolve over time. We've changed things over the years to respond to different issues and concerns respond to the current times. Like, for example, when we first opened the building, there was a guideline that you couldn't take pictures in the building. We recently changed that because we know that that's unenforceable. Pictures are a part of students and our members' lives, and we embrace that, so we've changed it. So we like to think we're evolving with times with the guidelines.
Great. And do you feel like most students now are aware of the dress code?
Probably not. The majority of our users, they might not know a lot of our different guidelines. It's not necessarily a bad thing because most of the folks that come into the facility use a facility without any type of need to know things because a lot of the ones that we have in place are common sense. Every member, whether they're a faculty staff member, an alumni member, a student member, before they can use the rec center, they go through a process of reading all of those things and agreeing to them. So everyone should be aware of them because before they're allowed to access the building, they sign off that they agree to, understand those rules that we have in place. With that said, a lot of people breeze through things when they're doing those type of things. So posted throughout the facility in a variety of different places are the guidelines that we have. So they're posted, probably 3 or 4 times around the facility. So there's always that constant reminder of what they are. And I'll allow our staff also to point those things out when they have to enforce a variety of different things in addition to the clothing piece.
So you believe that the enforcement of this dress code, it benefits the students, it's for their livelihood?
I would say it benefits all of our members for a variety of different reasons. Again, we're primarily focused on students, so you'll hear me use the term member. We like to use that term because it encompasses all the folks that use the building. I think everything that we have in place is it's in place for a variety of different things. It's risk reduction, it's safety, it's really to protect and make the space more welcoming to everyone that wants to use it.
Well, with the dress code, I know that on the posters itself, they mentioned for hygiene reasons. We actually spoke to a professor that specializes in public health, and let's hear what he had to say.
In the environmental health literature, there isn't anything to indicate that the skin in the back or the midsection is particularly unique or any more or less susceptible than skin elsewhere.
He mentioned how sweat itself can come from a number of different extremities, whether it be from the head, arms, legs. As far as the dress code itself, what prompted you to focus mainly on midriff and the upper exposure areas?
Yeah, sure. I think what we base a variety of the different things we do on, from programming to guidelines, is on industry standards. So if we go back to what I said before about the 17 or so different schools that we talked to about our guidelines, these are industry standards that are used, and I will say mostly in collegiate recreation. Some people often compare the rec center, the student rec center here at CSUN, to the corporate environment, 24-hour fitness, crunch fitness, and we're a little bit different from that since we're on a college campus. So they are in place for a variety of different reasons. Speaking about the potential or lack of potential for skin to equipment contact being something that could pose more risk for spreading different things, what we apply ourselves to and really abide by is this industry standards and its common practice. If we can limit or reduce the amount of skin to equipment contact, why not do that to help protect our students? But more so than what the professor talked about for us, it's really with those guidelines is trying to create that welcoming environment for students. So as much as we like to talk about the maybe health-related issues of disease spreading and things like that, it's really to create a welcoming environment for all genders based upon what people are wearing in the facility.
I'm going to cut to a personal story that we had from a woman named Sydney Kenny. She's going to detail exactly her experience with being a member at the SRC.
Personally, I have not had the best experience. For my encounter, I was revisiting the SRC my first week back at CSUN. I went to the SRC. I was wearing a Nike long sleeve and leggings, and I walked in, and the minute that I walked in, I got greeted with, "Make sure that your midriff isn't showing," and to which I responded that it wasn't and that it shouldn't. And the worker then decided to tell me again, "Okay, we'll make sure that it doesn't while you're working out then." To which I replied, okay. The repercussions for me is that I am already self-conscious of what I wear and what I look like and my appearance, hence why I'm going to the gym and why I am working out. So the fact that you are scrutinizing what I'm wearing and what is seen and what is shown while I'm exercising, it just amplifies the problem, I think, of self-image for me.
Jennifer, any comment on the students' encounter?
Well, I would just like to say that most of my students that I took a little informal poll in my class, and most of my students said that they also, because I teach primarily females, and I also asked the males as well, said that they had been restricted by the dress code and that they felt very shamed. That several times they were approached by older and larger gentlemen that had said to them, you need to get out because your midriff is showing. And they said it wasn't, they said it was about this much midriff. And I just think for women, we're so scrutinized by our appearance. The students are here to work out. Most of my students work, 8 hours a day, take classes, and they want to just go and work out and do, their athletic abilities, and to be scrutinized by their appearance, I think, is misguided. There are so many other things that we could be focusing on for women on this campus rather than cutting them down to their appearance. And this is a larger problem in female sports as well.
Would you be able to go into detail regarding what body shaming is?
Well, body shaming is, it's a very large term, but I think in this particular case, one of my students said that she was on the treadmill and that a gentleman approached her in front of other gentlemen and said, your midriff is showing, and as she said, it was this much, and he said, you have to leave the gym. And so she had to leave the gym for showing this much midriff. And I guess I don't see really what the point is, the difference, because guys go without their shirts all the time to work out. There might be a dress code at the student union, but it's not enforced the same way. None of the men had experiences of being told to leave or being told to change, and none of the enforcers were female when they checked in for the gym. So that's the experience that I've had with my students.
Jimmy, your reaction to the members' encounter?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Peer-to-peer enforcement of our guidelines is a very, very challenging thing to do. Our staff is made up of both males and females, college-age students. Everyone that works for us is a student employee. Those folks that roam the facility and enforce guidelines are students. I don't know the exact gender breakdown of our staff. It's unfortunate, that happened to her and she felt that way. What I can say is we see anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 students a day, members and students a day through the facility, and we have not had many issues or complaints about this particular problem since we opened the building. About 2 years ago, we had a student voice a concern in 2017, December 2017. Right. So we did a quick recheck of our guidelines. Right. And we benchmarked against 7 other CSUs, which we consider kind of our counterparts because of size and facility and things like that. And 5 of those 7 still had all the same things in place that they had in place that we do to kind of go at the goal of creating a welcoming environment. So, we still feel that we're trying to do what we feel is in the best interest of the students.
But I think a welcoming environment it has a lot more to do than with the dress code. And I think there is much more that I think it's petty. I think there's a way that you have to look at that when a man is talking to a woman, telling her what to wear and how to be in a physical way, it's already harder for women to enter into athletic domains to start with, and then to have this added pressure of having to appear in a certain way is, I think, petty. And I also think what my students have also told me is that they've never called women out for the bottoms of their legs, that this is really about breasts and revealing breasts, that is what is the key force for the dress code. Could you comment on that? Because I'm interested in seeing if that's where that is, tops to bottoms here with the girls and the guys.
No, well, I'd like to say that the comment was made that men work out all the time without their shirts off. That is something that's not allowed in the rec center and enforced. Right. We don't keep track of enforcement of various policies and who's talked to how many times and things like that. Yeah, the bottom piece, sure. You know, I think if you look at the evolution of fitness wear in general, regardless of gender, one thing has changed. And over time, the last couple of years, the trend has been for, you know, more exposure of skin on the top half of your body. So each year we ask our student employees what they need help with from an enforcement standpoint. This past year they said, we need help with enforcing the clothing guidelines. So we developed a tool. 2 years ago was a different tool. Year before that, all sorts of different things to help them enforce guidelines. That tool is actually made up by our marketing department, student employees, both male and female, actually whoever identifies as whichever gender. So everything that the student union does is about inclusivity. So our student board, you know, approaches us about our different guidelines, made up of all student employees, all genders. I talk with our chair about, you know, what's going on, you know, with you know, these particular questions, inform them, doing, you know, checks with students. Just as you talk to your class, I talked to many students the last couple of weeks. You know, this was brought up earlier in the summer. Checked in with a lot of females. Right. I'm not hearing some of the same concerns that you're hearing. With 3,000 to 4,000 people a day through the building, we do our best to, you know, to serve the students in the best way we think is possible. And that's what we think we're doing.
Why might men and women react differently to dress codes? I'll leave that open to you if you'd like, Jimmy.
Sure, yeah. You know, obviously with what's going on in the environment of outside CSUN, at CSUN, everywhere in political environment, you know, women's issues and in the treatment of women is very much on the forefront. The student union is very much in understanding of that. We are by no means trying to make women feel uncomfortable. Like anything, when these type of situations come up, it's causing us to revisit what we're doing. Like, for example, a person said that the flyer that we're using to help with enforcement, it would make sense if we had a male without his shirt off depicted. Easy fix. We can easily do that. So it's evolution of things.
I think you have to look at the systems of repression here. So if you are looking at a man telling a woman how to dress is different than a woman telling a man how to dress, because one is on the target end of sexism and one is on the non-target end of sexism. So I think that there are nuances here that I think we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, perhaps one of the things that we can do, and again, this is every time we have an opportunity, we learn and get better. Perhaps in situations like this, we could have our female staff approach other females when there's an issue about clothing. That's something we can do.
I think that would be great, because I think what, you know, you asked me about body shaming. I think that is part of it, and I'm glad that that's coming out of this conversation. Is that my students said, you know, if another female approached me and said, you know what, unfortunately your top is too high. Could you please leave the gym? She said, I would have felt differently about it, just because of the way sexism runs in our society.
Yeah, good feedback.
Correct. There were people that said that they did feel uncomfortable that somebody of the opposite sex was telling them exactly what to wear. So, correct. Yeah, with playing with the dress codes itself, of course it can lead to stereotypes like sexualizing women's bodies and even referring to men as predators of some sort. What behavior do these stereotypes perpetuate that come along with dress codes?
Well, I have to be honest. I think when I first heard about, you know, the dress code or at the gym, and you know that women were being asked to cover up, I actually thought maybe, you know, because when I went to school, there were lots of protests on campus, and women took off their tops, you know. So I thought, are people running around in the gym in their lingerie or their, you know? But so I think, and that's not what's happening. So I think that there's a lot of attention put on dress for women, talking about women's dress, focusing on that, when I would rather have the focus just be a place for women to work out. And does it really make a difference if they're midriff shows or not? I mean, is that going to really send an unwelcoming place for the students? I'm asking because I don't think so. But you would probably want to comment on that too.
Yeah, perhaps something we should revisit. What I would say is that a change in what we do would be a kind of, you know, in a way, kind of going away from the industry standard. So not to say that it's not something that should be considered. So yeah, I mean it's a possibility. There's lots of ways we ask students for feedback. So in our members, every spring, sometimes we skip and we ask for feedback with a survey. So perhaps this would be one of the questions that we would ask. But it would be interesting to the female that was interviewed talked about just being self-conscious about her body and different different things. So if we can think about the person, so one of the challenges we have is just getting, regardless of gender, getting someone to walk in that front door, because there's this image that they're going to a place where they need to conform to some type of what your body's supposed to
beauty
look
standard.
like.
Yeah.
Some type of, regardless of your gender, there's this image that people have. We have problems getting people to just come in the front door. So if perhaps what we ask people to wear might allow for that comfort, that's a step that I think we're willing to take to make that venue a little bit more welcoming, so that we don't have people walking around in various stages of clothing that might make people feel uncomfortable.
Jimmy, I have a question too, if I can ask. Is there a standard if people are overdressed, if they're wearing too much clothing and leaving their sweatshirts around the gym?
Well, everyone is required to put their personal items in a locker for theft and for reasons of we need to make things safe for people to get out in a hurry if they need to, for fire and things like that. So,
yeah, we actually asked students what they would like to say in regards to dress code policy makers if they had the chance, and here's what they had to say.
You can enforce it, but don't enforce it too much, because people don't want to be badgered and stuff like that.
Just let people be, make them work out, and it shouldn't matter to them on what they got on, because it shouldn't concern them.
What about you? Would you tell them anything?
Yeah, I think it's just like the same thing. Like whatever they feel comfortable, like they shouldn't really like bother with them. Like they shouldn't bother people and kick them out just because of the way they're dressed.
I would say just don't be so uptight with the rules. People wear what they want to wear to the gym. And if they're comfortable in whatever they're wearing, don't kick them out and ask them to change, because they may not have a change of clothes. So it might be an inconvenience for them, especially if they're paying for tuition fees. They're already paying for the gym. Why kick them out?
What about you? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I'll tell them the same thing. It's very inconvenient for students, especially those who commute and don't have the time to be able to come back to their home to change and come back. It's wasting gas as well. And also paying for parking if we don't have a parking permit.
I would say I think you're being a little bit dramatic and going over the top a little bit, because some people have probably complained, and I think you're really focusing on making the minority happy and not the actual majority of people using the SRC.
Well, Jimmy, you mentioned earlier that you would like to do a survey that would be able to, gauge exactly what kind of needs may need to be adjusted or fixed within, policies year to year. Is there anything else that you feel like that, students may, or the members, instead of like you mentioned before, would prefer to have in order to make the SRC even more welcoming?
No, and that's why we ask.
Yeah.
Right. So we're constantly evolving. Like I said, things are shifting. The interesting thing about that clip is a lot of those folks were talking about it from their perspective and the perspective of the person wearing what they're wearing and being asked to maybe change that. So the interesting perspective would be to get those folks who don't feel comfortable saying that, hey, I don't feel welcomed, I don't feel comfortable because people are doing X, Y, or Z, or wearing X, Y, and Z. So it's interesting. What I would like to do is make sure when we ask for opinions, in particular for this particular this issue, we make sure we make others feel comfortable that might be in the the minority as far as feeling like they're not able to voice that they don't feel comfortable with people in various stages of clothing. They actually like the way things are. Because based upon the feedback that we've received thus far, things seem to be going pretty well.
And Jennifer, and perhaps may give a suggestion in order to aid the ability to be more comfortable and perhaps gauging the students.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as and I'm glad to see that you're open through this. I think there might be some training that could take place, and I'd be happy to help with that. As far as when a man approaches a woman, it's an entirely different thing than when a man approaches a man or a woman approaches a woman, just because of the systems of sexism and the different oppressions that follow. I also think as a whole for women's sports, I mean, look at just what happened recently with Serena Williams, and the comments about her appearance and so we want to kind of ease up on that for women. We don't want to reinforce it and make it harder and harder for women to be athletic and to work out. We want to make it easier. So I think there can be, a happy medium in there somewhere.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate the time you guys took to come by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
You wouldn't give yourself or your loved one poison, would you? Then why would you take or give counterfeit medications that may contain the wrong or no active ingredient? Counterfeit medications are out there. They can be ineffective and harmful to your health. Be a smart consumer and know your pharmacy, especially if you're purchasing medication online.
You're on your boat. Your engines are dead. You're starting to sink, and you can't get a cell phone signal. Thankfully, you have a Marine VHF radio on board tuned to Channel 16. The Coast Guard and other boaters monitor distress calls on Channel 16. A radio is the best way to call for help. Don't assume a cell phone will work. Communication is your lifeline. Be sure you're heard.
I found them at work, on a desk, laying out in the open. Copied them, shared them on a website. Now I'm facing up to 3 years in jail. It's scary. Who knows where it's going? I mean, who's gonna hire me? Don't do it. It's not worth it.
Thank you for watching On Point. You can follow us on social media at CSUN On Point. You can hear us on KCSN 88.5 FM on Sunday mornings at 5:30. You can watch us on Santa Clarita Valley Television on Sundays at 5 and on LA 36 at 9:30 on Thursday nights. For all of us here at On Point, I'm Andrea Tanchez.